الظلم ومخرج الصبر من الألم وملقي التوبة على الندم ونشكره على المصائب كما نشكره على النعم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم تلك آيات الكتاب الحكيم هدى ورحمة للمحسنين الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Today we have all gathered here to discuss a topic that is extremely important. Something that is of extreme contemporary relevance, something that has really affected the youth, something that has grasped the minds and the hearts of the youth and has indoctrinated them, has brainwashed them with a lot of poisonous messages. Now, this topic is actually quite expansive. It's a very detailed, it's a very comprehensive topic. So I'm just giving you a heads up that it's not going to be completed this week. We'll have to go to the next week as well with the same topic. And also I'll be going a bit more faster when it comes to discussing certain scientific reports or researches. Because a lot of these reports or researches consist of a lot of jargons, a lot of scientific terminologies that may not be very useful to a non-scientific student, to a student who is not to a person who is not a student of psychology or sociology or anthropology. So when we discuss those researches, I'll just be giving you the crux of it, and then we'll be going or moving a bit more faster. But before directly going into the discussion of the topic, let me ask you this question. Is music industry harmful to the youth? Is music industry harmful to the youth? All right. So the unanimous answer we have here is that it's quite harmful, right? It's quite harmful. All right. So let's begin with the general instructions. Make sure your intentions are clear. Make sure you're answering the questions that I'm asking through the chat. All right. So, just like I say, at the start of every session, I'll be asking you a lot of questions. I like to have the sessions as a dialogue. So make sure, you answer these questions as much as possible in the chat. The amount of effort you put in to interact with me will give you or will ensure that you have the maximum output through the session. Now, let me start with a story, a personal story from my own life. I studied in a college in Calicut. Now, as we all know, in college, there are a lot of non-academic activities. Compared to the schools, college has a lot of, non-academic activities, right? How many of you are studying in college? Say yes in the chat. If you're a student in a college, say yes in the chat. A lot of us, we are all studying in different colleges, right? We are all studying in different colleges. Now, when it comes to non-academic activities, something that is very, very prevalent is the presence of music celebrations or music festivals. Music celebrations or music festivals. Whatever theme the non-academic activity has, whether it's for social service, whether it's for social welfare, whether it's like, even if it's like a non-academic session or even an academic session, they're always going to have something called as cultural celebration, or they're always going to have DJ parties. They're going to have dancing. Like, it's the norm. It's the norm, regardless of what program you go into, whether it's academic or non-academic, whether it's curricular or non-curricular, it's always going to have the music festivals. Now, if you go to the music festivals, the music being played, are they going to be music that talks about the importance of charity, the importance of going to pray, the importance of, noble things? No, right? Like, what are the major themes that come in these festivals or these music parties? What music are they going to play? A lot of them are filth, absolute filth. And it's shocking. It's shocking that a person is able to listen to such things. Like, it's really filthy. Imagine a person comes and talks to you about highly explicit sexual content and telling you to do drugs. Like, you would obviously be disgusted. Like, you would tell, like, man, what are you talking about? At the same time, in the background, like, if he plays a song that talks about hypersexuality, that talks about drugs, premarital relationships, etc., the people are just going to hear them. And, they're going to dance to the tune. They're going to dance to the tune. Now, back in college, I used to be part of a lot of, social initiatives. I used to be part of NSS, Plan, Childline, Palliative, the associations. I used to be part of a lot of these organizations, and I used to go and attend a lot of the programs that are conducted in these organizations. And I do particularly remember a very specific program. Now, how many of you have attended non-curricular activities in your college? How many of you have attended non-curricular activities in your college? Now, obviously, these non-curricular activities are going to have something called a cultural celebration or cultural activities during the night. I do remember very specifically, while I was going to this 10-day camp that is conducted by an organization which I would not like to name at the moment. I was going there, and the fun fact is I studied in a college where I would say 90% of the people are Muslim, or 90% of the students, they're Muslims. I was going to the program, and like, I'm going in by the bus, and I do very clearly remember, like, everyone in the bus, like, they were just jumping up and down and dancing. And what are we going for? We're going for, doing charity works. We're going for doing, welfare programs, right? And then everyone is jumping up and down to songs. And what are these songs talking about? These songs are talking about, I don't even want to say the topics they're talking about. Like, it's really, really filthy and vulgar. And I'm just there, sitting shocked. Like, I mean, isn't there one person like who thinks the meaning of what these songs are? And then, we got to the place, and like, we did the charity works in the daytime, and during the nighttime they're having this party as usual. And I'm just sitting there, like, in the room, hearing the songs that are coming in. And it's so disturbing. Like, the kind of songs that were playing, it was talking about drugs, it was talking about premarital sex, it was talking about, like, there's a specific word in English that talks about sexual intercourse with your mother. Like, that's how disgusting it was. And these people, Muslims, hijabis, and both men and women, they were intermixing and they were jumping up and down. And I got so disturbed. That I got out, I talked to the secretary, I told him, like, what in the world are you doing here? You're a Muslim. What are you doing here? And what kind of song are you playing? And the guy, just said, like, very, very casually, come on, man, don't be extreme. Come on, man. Like, and even if we're dancing to this song, like, nobody listens to the lyrics. Like, that is a common justification these people give. Nobody listens to the lyrics. Don't be extreme, man. Come and join us, right? So, like, this is the sad reality we are living in. This is the sad reality we're living in. Music festivals, celebrations, DJs, it's the norm of the world that we live in, All right. Now, I'm going to go into a deeper discussion on the problem of music. Now, before that, let me give you a few disclaimers. I have given you one disclaimer, and that is that the topic is extremely comprehensive. For you to get a full perspective, you will have to listen to this completely. You'll have a lot of questions in your mind, but just stay patient and listen completely. You'll get a full perspective, inshallah, in this week and the next week. Now, all the scientific evidences cited in this presentation are fully factual and based on well-established reports. I am clearly mentioning this because when I usually talk to a lot of people, they say, come on, Ali, you're a Muslim. Yeah, you're just being biased, right? Like, they have certain, very common insults they use against us. But then, like, when we give scientific evidence, even then they claim that it's prejudiced and biased. So I'm giving you the disclaimer that is fully well established. It's fully, factual. It's filled with statistics and figures. Now, maximum care has been taken to stay away from biased conspiracy theories related to the topic to make the presentation completely authentic. Some people, just so that they can support their argument, they just make up things from the air, like a lot of conspiracy theories. All right, so we're not going to, stand with these conspiracy theories as Muslims. We are supposed to stand with what is authentic. وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا, like it's to be straightforward, like it should be clear. It should be واضح. It should be, bayyin. All right, we don't play with inauthentic stuff. We stick to what is proved. The presentation covers the topic from a scientific perspective and not from a religious one. For a religious understanding, please connect with a scholar. Now, let me tell you that I'm not a scholar. I'm just a very small student of knowledge, but I'm a student of psychology as well. So I'm going to be speaking from a completely scientific and psychological perspective. From a psychological perspective, but along with that, let me tell that Jumhurul Ulama, majority of the scholars, the A'immat al-Arba', Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Muhammad Idris al-Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, majority of the scholars we have in our tradition clearly said music is what? Music is what? Can anyone tell me music is what? Haram. It's very clear. It's very clear. It's haram. All right. Now, with regards to the evidences for this claim from the Quran and the Sunnah, all of this, you can, talk with a scholar and get your clarification. And, some people say, okay, there is ikhtilaf. Like one scholar has said this and one scholar has said that. So we have got a loophole. All right. And then they utilize and, exploit this loophole. Let me assure you this. All right. With full confidence, with full guarantee, let me assure you that no scholar from any school of thought who has died or living in any part of the world will ever say that the modern music videos, most of the music that is being listened to by the youth today is halal. Nobody's going to say that. All right. Nobody is going to say that. Let me be very, very clear. All right. So don't use, the loophole of ikhtilaf. So once that is clear, let me go. Let me enter to the discussion with a question. What is music? What is music? Comment your thoughts in the chat. What is music? Okay. One person said instruments. Okay. Rhythm. Right? Powerful sounds. Okay. So we have got multiple words here. Sound produced by the instruments. All right. Tunes to a beat. Okay. Voice, tune. All right. Now, the reason why I'm starting with the definition is because regardless of what we are doing or what area we are researching, the fundamental thing is to have a common definition. If you're learning fiqh, if you're learning hadith, not only in Islamic sciences, if you go to, the secular sciences as well, they start with a definition, right? If you're learning fiqh, like you will learn about istilahat, the ta'rif al-istilah, etc. Right? So first we are going to talk about the definition. We have got multiple, opinions in the chat. Let's go with the objective definition. According to musical composer Roger Sessions, music is controlled movement of sound in time. All right, focus on these two words, controlled movement. Amos Rosenfield, a psychologist and musician, explains the notion of control in music is important. So music is not just some random sounds, but it's rather controlled. Now, when something is controlled, it can be controlled consciously or unconsciously. We'll talk about that soon, inshallah. Music is rarely the spontaneous outpouring of whatever sound someone happens to be moved to make. It is highly patterned sound chosen and shaped, consciously or not, in quite logical ways that often follow rigid rules. So music, if you are a person who studied, any subject with regards to music, like you would know that music has clear-cut rules, has clear-cut regulations, has clear-cut patterns. They have their own theorems, they have their own, structure, right? They have their own structure. So understand that it's highly patterned sound, and it's chosen and shaped. It's chosen and shaped. Now, it can be chosen and shaped for multiple purposes, multiple objectives, multiple agendas. Inshallah, we'll talk about that very, very soon. Now, the first question I would like to ask you is this: does music affect the body? Does music affect the body? So, what is the problem in just listening to, a piano being played in the background? Like, what's the big deal here? What is the problem in just listening to some tunes that are coming from the external environment? Now, most people are unaware of the things. And the things that I'm going to talk about now, it'll surprise a lot of you. It'll surprise a lot of you. So first, understand that music does have a physiological effect in your body. When we talk to certain people, certain Muslims who call themselves Muslims, who are actually liberals, who follow a naturalistic or materialistic worldview, when we tell them, okay, music curbs the heart, and they say, come on, man, like, what are you talking about? Curbs the heart? What are you talking about, etc.? They give a lot of baseless justifications, essence with a lot of insults. But here, when we talk about the effect that music has on the body, like, we're talking about literal physiological effect. Like, your body is directly affected. There's direct effect on the body. And we'll talk about the scientific researchers on this particular topic. So music's effect on the human body can be measured and recorded. It's clear, it's scientific. When combined with singing, the effects of music upon its listeners become even more powerful. Now, because people tend to consciously ignore or consider auditory listening experience insignificant, there appears little indication that they are aware of either music's power or pervasiveness. So therefore, a lot of people are not aware of the reality of this. Like, they really don't understand that music directly affects their physiology, their neurology. It directly affects it. There are several scientific studies that has been done to show that music and singing affect both our bodies and our brains. So hence, music is a very powerful force which has profound effects on its listeners. It's not simply an innocent entertainment and a mixture of haphazard sounds. A lot of people just think that, come on, like, music, what's the big deal with listening to a song that has been released recently in any of the films? Like, they just do it for entertainment. Like, it's a common justification. They think that it's innocent entertainment. They think that it's innocent entertainment. But if we take a deeper analysis, we clearly understand that it is not as innocent as it seems. In fact, music is composed of highly structured, carefully chosen sounds, as psychologist Rosenfeld pointed out. Therefore, listening to music is not an issue of merely seeking entertainment. Listening to music has deep consequences on our bodies and our behaviors, and we'll delve into this particular topic in depth. So I'm going to be discussing a lot of scientific studies today, inshallah. And in the next session, if we get time, we'll be focusing on the internal agendas and how it is closely interrelated to liberalism and other postmodern philosophies. All right, now let me ask you another question. Have you ever felt happy or sad listening to music? Have you ever felt happy or sad listening to music? All right, let me ask you another question. How many of you go to the gym? How many of you go to the gym? If you go to the gym, say me in the chat. All right. Now, what kind of music is played in the gym? Like, is it, soothing, music, jazz music, which prompts you to go to sleep? No, like, it's going to be like super energetic, adrenaline rushing, upbeat, rock hard style music, right? Like, if you listen to, like, you'll probably want to punch the wall. Like, that's what you will feel if you listen to these songs. Like, it's hyper energetic. It's hyper energetic. Now, why do you think they would play this song in the gym? Like, why won't they play like melodious songs, sleepy songs? It has a clear reason. It has a clear reason. Now, if you have gone to restaurants, like in restaurants, you would have heard the background music, right? Is it like rock music, like everyone is eating and they're eating to the, like, rock music and hard style music. No, it's melodious. It's melodious. It's relaxing, etc. It's relaxing, etc. If you go to a supermarket, now this is also a fun topic to discuss in consumer psychology. Like there are multiple studies that clearly prove that the music that is chosen to be played in supermarkets, like it's very clearly chosen. It's very clearly chosen. And there was a particular study that proved that the purchasing actually increased. I think it was 49%, if I remember correctly. 49% just by listening to this. Like it does have a clear-cut effect. It does have a clear-cut effect. So now we're going to be discussing about the scientific relationship of music and emotions. Music and emotions. There are scientific studies done which provide evidence that people experience emotions while listening to music. For example, Pike's analysis of music experience published in the Journal of Research in Music Education in 1972 was carried on a number of musically untrained participants who listened to different pieces of music. The results of that study show that 96% of participants experience feeling of pleasure, 83% experience feeling of oneness with music, 72% felt transient mood state, and 65% had the feeling of movement. The findings of this study provided evidence that listeners experience emotions in relation to music. Like it's very clear. It's very clear. Music does have, does affect your emotions. It does affect your emotions. And whenever I'm stating a study, I'll also be giving you clear-cut references. All right. I'll be giving you clear-cut references. If you want to research more, you can go through the references and learn further, inshallah. Researchers have also shown evidence of expressive behavior in responses to music. For instance, in 1991, there were two separate studies done by John A. Sloboda of the University of Kiel in the United Kingdom and A. Gabrielson, who is a Canadian researcher, in which they show that people cry when they listen to certain kinds of music. Now, let me ask you, it can be a little bit embarrassing to admit. Have you ever cried listening to music? Have you ever cried listening to music? A lot of people are saying yes. Listening to music, like it makes a person cry. It can make a person laugh. It can make a person happy. It can make a person sad, right? It can make a person sad. So these are the references, for the study that was conducted in 1991. Studies using facial electromyography, EMG, has demonstrated that facial expressions on the faces of people change while listening to expressive music, and the music listeners are sometimes not even aware of this. Like your facial expressions clearly change. I've seen this in a guy putting his headphones on, and like his facial expression is like he's smiling. He's smiling. I've clearly seen this. How many of you have seen this? How many of you have seen this? A person smiling just by listening to music. Now, in the counseling field, like you can see a lot of strange things. I've seen people like who go crazy just by listening to certain kinds of musics. And we'll talk about that. Like it's very related to drug addiction as well. When a person takes in neuroinhibitor drugs, which will slow down the processing of the brain, they also complement it with certain kinds of music, lofi music, low fidelity music, etc. But that is not our topic at the moment, so we'll not be going there. But I'm just mentioning that music does have clear-cut, direct consequences. It has direct consequences. In the same way, researchers Niklasek, Thayer, and Van Dornen have reported evidence that depending on different types of music, happy, sad, agitated, and calming, there are cardiorespiratory effects. So we are slowly moving on to physiology, psychophysiology. Your heartbeat can increase or decrease based on the music you listen to. How many of you have experienced this? Your heartbeat increasing. Your heartbeat increasing. If you go to gym and you play like some really strong heart style song, like your heartbeat will increase, whether you like it or not. It will increase. It will increase. Now, certain music can also calm you, and it can clearly slow down your heartbeat as well. All right. All this discussion provides evidence that there is a profound relationship between music and emotions. This happens because music affects the region of the brain called as the limbic system, which regulates emotion. I'm pretty sure almost all of you might have heard about the limbic system, even though like you don't need to know like a lot of depth, but just like we have all completed this in our high school or high secondary. Limbic system, which is an important part of the brain. It's a very important part of the brain. So now we're going to be talking about the biological effects of music on the body. A study was carried out at Stanford University, California, the United States of America, by scientist Avram Goldstein, who studied the phenomenon of spine-tingling chill that often results in goosebumps, tears, or lump in the throat. Since music affects our emotions, Goldstein tested to see if music has the ability to cause thrills in its listeners. Now, here is where it gets really surprising. It gets really surprising. He found that, as it is shown in the table here, 96% of his subjects reported thrills in response to music. All right, so we have got a lot of different variables here. We've got musical passages, scene in a movie, great beauty in nature or art, physical contact with another person, climatic moments in opera, sexual activity, sudden insight or solution to a problem, particular moments in a sports event, particular fragrances, physical exercise, etc. Now, I want you to look at the chart and tell me which variable caused the most thrills. Which variable caused the most thrills? Just take a look at the chart and tell me which variable caused the most thrills. It's very clear. It's very, very clear. It's very clear. What is it? It's musical passages. It's musical passages. Like, compare that to any other thing. Compare that to any other thing. Looking at beautiful natural scenery or physical contact with another person, or even when you are having intimacy with your wife or your husband, like the thrills that you have during music is much higher than that. It's much higher than that. And Goldstein also observed that men and women did not differ in thrills caused to them by music. So the effect is similar. So the effect is very, very similar. Very, very similar. This study provides scientific evidence that something powerful happens to many people emotionally when they listen to music, whether they like it or not. Right? Whether they like it or not. If you are exposed to this stuff, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you. Like it's almost like exposing yourself to radiation. Just imagine that you went to Chernobyl. All right. Now, what is Chernobyl famous for? What is Chernobyl famous for? The disaster, right? We have all heard this, the nuclear disaster. Now, imagine that you go to Chernobyl, like just near the reactor, and you just stand there. You stand there and you say to yourself, all right, I'm exposing myself to this stuff, but in my mind, I'm not concentrating on it. What do you think is going to happen? Like, nothing, it's not going to affect you. What is going to happen? What is going to happen? Like, you'll probably, have some cell mutations and probably look like a monster or something, right? Your genetics is going to be completely modified. Anyway, so, whether you like it or not, whether you concentrate or not, whether you're listening or not, like if you just stay there in that environment, it is going to affect you because it has direct physiological, neurological consequences. It was found that the most powerful stimulus for evoking thrill-like sensations in the subject was music. Hence, music causes arousal in the subjects. That is, it can increase the heart rate, alter respiratory rate, raise the pupil rate, pulse rate, and dilate the pupils. Dilate the pupils. All right. So it is well established, it affects us. It affects us. When singing is accompanied by musical instruments, it becomes extremely powerful. All right. Now we're going to be discussing something very, very important. Listen very carefully. Just sit straight. However, where you were sitting, just sit straight now and take a breath in and breath out. If you have done that, say yes in the chat. Now here's where we're going to be getting into something that is extremely, extremely serious. All right. In a study published in the Journal of Applied Social Psychology in 1972, researchers Galizio and Hendrick demonstrated that the subjects listening to a song had a greater arousal, persuasion effect, or I read this 2 times, persuasion effect, and acceptance of the song's message when the song is accompanied with a guitar as compared to the song without a guitar. And we're going to be talking about the persuasion effect in a bit more depth in the upcoming slides, inshallah. Inshallah. So a person can be persuaded much faster with certain types of music playing in the background. That is why, if you go to political parties, if you go to politicians, like they will have, a certain role. Like there's a specific person they employ. I can't remember the name of the role at the moment, but it's there. Like the Democratic Party, the Republican Party in the United States, they all hired these people who are well versed in psychology. When they're creating election videos, like it's very clearly, very objectively, they choose what kind of music is to be played, and why they need to play it in certain tone and certain rhythm. Like it's all very clearly, very strategically orchestrated so that the people can be inspired by it, people can be affected by it. And the persuasion effect increases the more emotional music they add in to the presentation, to the video. Now, another question I would like to ask you is, have you ever sat at the window seat of the bus while music was playing on the speakers? Like, imagine that there's a beautiful music playing like in the speakers, and you're just sitting in the window seat, and you're traveling through a really beautiful, naturally scenic environment. All right. What happens when you do that? What happens when you do that? Two things happen. You either think about your past, things that happened to you, or you think about hypothetical things that you want to happen in your future. Hypothetical things that you want to happen in your future. All right. Some people think about they're winning in their examinations, and then they're cracking, IPS, UPSC examinations, and, getting out of the police jeep with everyone saluting them. Or some people, imagine, their perfect marital life or something, right? If it is kids, like, they'll probably dream about, getting superpowers or, all those things, right? And when you look into the future, you think about hypothetical things. When you, look into the past, you think about really emotionally powerful and intense nostalgic moments, like the good times that you had in your childhood with your friends, etc. Right? So, like, just being in that spot and this music playing in the background, it does affect you. How many of you have felt this? Like, you're in this fantasy world and you didn't even realize that you reached the place, and you thought to yourself, I reached the place so fast, etc. How many of you have felt this? Now, this points towards something called as a hypnotic effect, a trance-induced state due to music, which we'll, discuss a bit more deeply, inshallah. So we're going to be discussing about the biological effects of music on the brain. Music acts much like intoxicants, where it makes one forget about one's surroundings while it is being played. It takes the mind into a delusional state. It takes the mind into a delusional state. In the realm of the mind, there is mounting evidence that certain types of music have negative effect on one's ability to think and learn, especially while they are listening to music. And this delusional state, an example of this, I have seen in something that happened, I think, in the past year. Now, I was not specifically, researching this particular topic, but that particular incident made me think. It was an incident wherein which there was a huge music festival, a music party, and a lot of people, like, due to some reason, I don't know if it was due to fire or it was due to, tramping, each other, a lot of people were killed. Some people were killed due to exhaustion. Some people were killed due to heart attack and all these things. Now, a lot of people are dying on one part of this particular festival, while the singer on the stage, like, he's seeing all of this and he's continuing, like, he's singing, and like everyone else, like in the like music festival, they're all saying this, but at the same time they're doing nothing. They're just jumping up and down, enjoying and smiling. That's one incident. The second incident that made me think about this particular sentence, the delusional state, was something that a news that I've seen, where in which everyone is dancing up and down, and in a nightclub, and in this nightclub, a person's dead body was hanging. It was hanging, and people were just, like, dancing up and down in front of this dead body. Like, you tend to think, like, how can people do this? How can people even do this? Like, it's astonishing. It's astonishing. All right, so we'll discuss more with regards to this, trance-induced state a bit more in a bit more depth, inshallah. So studies at two separate universities, for example, have found that rats have much more difficult time learning to pass through maze if they're subjected to rock music. In other words, the learning abilities of rats were debilitated temporarily due to the influence of music. So music blurs the critical judgment abilities of the brain. It basically covers up or destroys the logical and rational faculty of the brain, So music blurs the critical judgment abilities of the brain. It's very clear, it's proof. Now, we need a little bit of psychological background to understand the things that we are going to be discussing in the next few slides. So limbic system. How many of you have heard the word limbic system? technically words. The limbic system. For the people who have not heard this word, just understand this. You don't need to know like a lot of things about it. So the limbic system in our body has the following functions. It controls emotions, controls emotional responses. It controls hormonal secretions, your mood, pain and pleasure sensations, the long-term memory. It controls all these aspects. It controls all these aspects. Okay, so this system is also responsible for some aspects of personal identity and for important functions related to memory. If damage occurs to the limbic area of the brain due to a disease or an accident, the most commonly observed effects are abnormalities of emotional response, such as inappropriate crying or laughing, easily provoked rage, anxiety and depression, and excessive sexual interest. So, these are a few effects of, having a damaged limbic system, a damaged limbic system. It seems that sex, drugs, and rock and roll are so much connected to each other that they even stimulate the same region of the human brain that is the limbic system. That is the limbic system. Now let's look at the figure. This is the limbic system. Now, when you look at sexual activity, the limbic system is activated, is triggered. If you look at alcohol, drugs, cocaine, and crack, like they act on the limbic system. And at the same time, what is the other variable that stimulates the limbic system? What is the other variable that stimulates the limbic system? It is music. And while I was, looking at this graph, like the first thing that came into my mind was a hadith. Was a hadith wherein which the Prophet ﷺ talked about the same three things, the same elements. Like he talked about the same elements, subhanallah. Like that was like mind-blowing for me personally. It was amazing. It was amazing. So the Prophet ﷺ was grouping the same things together. And here we see, the limbic system being activated by these three, elements. So Dr. Paul King, child and adolescent psychiatrist at the University of Tennessee, Memphis notes, music that speaks directly to young people about sex, violence, and suicide may be a serious problem, public health problem. Okay, so this is where we get to another stage or another level of our discussion. Now, let me ask you, the music songs that are being released today in whatever movies, what are their main themes? What are their main themes? Sex is there, girls, drugs, money, it's all there. Love, it's very prominent. Relationships, a lot. Absolute filth, no doubt in that. YOLO, romantic, gangs, lust, a lot. We have breakup. So we have a lot of these themes that are being discussed. Now, in a percentage wise, yes, there might be like minority, like probably 0.1% of the songs that might have some positive content, but like majority of them has problematic contents. There is no doubt in this. There is no doubt in this. All right. So the doctor here, the psychiatrist, Dr. Paul King, he says that music that contains such stuff, that speaks to young people directly about sex, violence, and suicide, they can pose serious public health issues. They can pose what? Serious public health issues. Now, how does it cause a public health issue? How does it cause a public health issue? What is a big deal in just, listening to these songs? Okay, we have one point, that is addiction. That is a valid point. What else? Now, let me ask you, is there a possibility that children or young people or adolescents or teenagers might pragmatize or put into practice what they're listening to? Yes, we have crazy examples of it. We'll probably not have the time to discuss that in this session. We'll probably discuss that in the next session, inshallah. Like, it's very, very problematic. How many of you have seen people using a lot of, the bad words, like the curse words, the filthy words that are being used today? Like just 20 years ago, like it was not that prevalent, but today, like it's the norm. It's the norm. How did the society change so fast? Like, it's pretty shocking. When you do an anthropological analysis of history, you don't see society changing so fast. Like 20 years or 30 years, like it's a very, very fast pace. How did it become so normalized? Was due to the media industry, the music industry, using all this filth to demoralize the society. And let me assure you, this is not an accident. It is not an accident. The topics of sex, violence, and suicide coming into these songs, It is not an accident. It is based on clear-cut strategy. It is based on clear-cut agenda. But with regards to these things, there are a lot of conspiracy theories, but we're going to keep away from all the conspiracy theories, and we're going to talk about something that is clearly proved if time allows in this session, inshallah, or maybe in the next week. In addition, hippocampus, which is part of the limbic system of the brain involved in formation of long-term memory, is also affected. When people listen to music, which acts on the limbic system of the brain, the sexual or aggressive messages of the songs become part of their characters for the rest of their life. All right, so this is also something really important. It becomes part of their life. It becomes part of their character. It becomes part of their personality. If you're a person who constantly listens to rap songs, and right now, like, I'm talking to not just to young people, I'm also talking to the parents. If your children are listening to this filth constantly, the rap songs, the music videos that are coming out these days, being a student of psychology, I can assure you that your child's characteristic or personality is getting changed. It's getting altered. It's getting designed. It's getting structured by an external entity. And that entity, determines the messages that is to be, presented in these music videos and music songs. So understand that if you listen to these songs, if you listen to this filth, it's directly going to affect you. Now, if you need to understand the effect that it's going to have, we're going to talk a lot more on that particular topic as well, inshallah. But just look at, just have a very general analysis. All right, just have a very general analysis of the songs, or the top charts, the top 10 charts, or the chart of the top 10 songs that are being released. Just look at their lyrics, and it'll prove to you what I'm talking about. Accordingly, this observation cannot be overemphasized that teenagers are even more prone to the pernicious effects of music than other people. The relationship of music and sexuality can also be understood by the observation that when teenagers reach the age of puberty, they tend to receive inspiration from prevalent themes of music and singing. Why do you think premarital relationships are increasing on an exponential rate? Yes, there are a lot of variables and there are a lot of reasons, but at the same time, music industry plays a very prominent role. There is absolutely no doubt. As noted by Elizabeth Brown and William Hendy, music is important to adolescents in many ways. For example, music plays a large role in adolescent socialization. Now, parents who have children, listen very carefully. As adolescents gain interdependence, they turn to music as an information source. All right, is it just entertainment source? No, information source. Now, if you have learned child psychology, there's a very particular concept called as observational learning. So we have multiple learning theories. We have classical conditioning theory, operant conditioning theory, latent learning theory, insight learning, trial and error learning, etc. And one of the prominent ways of learning is observational learning. And psychologists say that children and adolescents, their primary mode of learning is observation. So when they listen to these music videos and when they watch these, when they see these films, they are learning. It's not just entertainment. They might be laughing with you. They might be smiling with you. They might be crying with you while watching these, sentimental films. They're not just entertaining themselves, but they are learning. Let me tell you one more thing with regards to observational learning. If you tell your children to not use cigarettes, while at the same time you use cigarettes, your children are not going to follow you. Because children don't listen, they imitate. They observe and then they imitate. The ironic thing here is a lot of these films, they use drugs, they use cocaine, they use alcohol, they use cigarettes, and down, they will have a small label. They will have a small label saying that we don't endorse alcohol. We don't endorse smoking. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Do you think that small label is going to have any effect? You have a small label there, and in the screen you're showing hyper overemphasized drug use with a lot of influencing music. Who are these people trying to fool? Allah al-Musta'an. In research published in 1971, social scientist R. Cole reported that nearly 3/4 of the lyrics of the top songs of the 1960s used love and sex as their predominant thing. All right, this is 1971. All right, 1971. Let me ask you, do you think it has increased or decreased? It has decreased or increased, decreased or increased in the past 50 years. Here, our call is saying that nearly 3/4. All right, like 3/4, like how can we go beyond that? Like now I would say like it's 99.999%. 99.99%. Like love and sex, like it's the most predominant theme. It is the most predominant theme. The trend did not change over the later years. In more recent research published in the Journal of Communication 1986, researchers Sherman and Dominic found that song lyrics have not become less sexually oriented. It has become more sexually oriented. In the 1960s, 1980s, in the 1990s, if they were talking about premarital sex, if they were talking about free sex, now what are they talking about? Now they're talking about homosexuality. Now they're talking about necrophilia. Now they're talking about pedophilia. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Like it's shocking. I don't want to name the singer here because people might get curious and search it up. But there's a singer like he's producing content having sexual relationship with a demon. Like was clearly shown in a report. And like it is getting no criticism. And like this is publicly accepted. This is publicly accepted. That's how messed up our society has become. That's how messed up our society has become. Music industry has a lot to do with that. A lot to do with that. And they produce these songs with a lot of addictive, rhythms, a lot of these addictive rhythms. And then on the other side, we have absolute stupidity, in which our own young people, Muslims with the name of Muhammad and Ahmed and Fatima and Khadija, dancing on TikTok videos to these songs playing in the background. How absolutely ridiculous and profoundly preposterous. Allah al-Musta'an. Like that's how ridiculous the thing has become. That's how ridiculous the world has become. Allah al-Musta'an. In the same way, Christensen and Debenites noted in their study published in 1986 that popular music lyrics contain references to explicit metaphorical to sexual activity. It is very clear. It is very clear. And there are some people who say this, and with this particular discussion, we'll try to end, inshallah. Some people say this: I just enjoy the beats and the tune. I don't listen to the lyrics. Have you heard people saying this? I just enjoy the beats and the tune. I don't listen to the lyrics. This is exactly, what that person at that camp told me. Right? Now, we're going to be talking about certain scientific evidences that clearly prove that even the beats affect you, man. Even the beats affect you. Even if you're just listening to these beats, it has clear-cut effect on your brain. Like whether you want to have an influence or not, regardless of what your intention is, it is going to have an effect on you. It is going to have an effect on you. Rhythm is basically a physical force that exists in nature, such as in the heartbeat, in walking, in breathing. All right. What is the rhythm of the heart? Does anyone know the rhythm of the heart? The rhythm of the heart. Our body, has certain rhythms. Our body has certain rhythms. All right. And when exposed to certain rhythms, our body reacts. All right, our body reacts. Our body readily reacts or responds to strong external rhythmic stimuli. For example, from drums, pulsating beats, and hypnotic lighting effects. Right, certain rhythms, when you hear it, your body will move. All right. How many of you have felt this? When listening to certain rhythms, your body will move, your neck will start moving reflexively. Reflexive movement of your body parts to certain rhythms, and you may not even know it. Like seriously, you may not know it. Like you are doing this and you may not know it. You may not know it. Like it might seem unbelievable in certain aspects, but it does. Like there is clear-cut proof for this. The most definite, therefore, it is little wonder that most soothing music usually beats at about 70 to 80 tones per minute, which resembles the natural rhythm of a heartbeat. The most definite characteristic of jazz is its pulsating rhythm. The drum beat in jazz resembles the heartbeat in that both involve beats about 72 times per minute. Now we're going to be talking about something which is very, very serious, so listen carefully. Due to the intoxicating rhythms of the music, people can be possessed by the music, and in the process surrender their selves to the music. Read this again. Like this is something that is very profound. Something that is really, really profound. And it's going to be completely backed up by scientific evidence, which we will discuss, inshallah. Music can hypnotize people and hence capture their minds. That is also clearly proved. The basic feature of hypnosis is repetition. All right, in psychology, the people who might have learned about hypnotic theories, one of the basic feature, one of the basic elements of hypnosis is repetition, constant repetition. If you look at music, the rhythms also have a constant repetition. A repetitive beat, ideally in the range of 72 beats per minute, which is the rhythm close to the beating of the heart, is very hypnotic. It's very hypnotic. And prolonged exposure to such a rhythm can be trance-inducing. The messages that are conveyed during this trance-induced state will actually overcut or jump through the faculty of rationality, because it's so much emotionally covered that it'll directly enter into the subconscious mind. We'll discuss a bit more on that, inshallah. The steady repetitive drumbeat can generate an altered state of consciousness and can place the listener's mind into a dangerous state of suggestive hypnosis. In such a hypnotic state, the message of the songs becomes imprinted on the minds of their listeners without any critical analysis. For example, if a person comes to you and says and talks to you about homosexuality, drugs and alcohol and all these vulgar, asinine, vile, ridiculous, stupid things that are really, really disturbing and repulsive, would you believe them, or would you accept, or would you at least listen to them? Would you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a human being who has at least basic dignity, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. At the same time, if the same message is essence with a certain rhythm, with attractive, fluctuation of tones, with a lot of these, with the help of a lot of these, musical instruments, you will not only listen to them, but you will accept it without you yourself knowing. You'll accept it, and you won't even know that you're getting demoralized. You won't even know that you're getting demoralized. Subhanallah, like this is really shocking. And these are not conspiracy theories. These are not, hypothetical situations that were developed by some biased or prejudiced person, but this is like clear-cut, scientific, factually proved statements. Like it's very clear. It's very clear. Their minds passively absorb what is told to them in the songs. And it's much more prevalent in adolescents and young children. Young children tend to believe a lot of things very fast. Adolescents too, maybe not at the same pace, but adolescents too have do passively absorb a lot of the stimulus they see in the environment. Renowned American composer, electric guitarist, record producer Frank Vincent Zappa wrote in Life magazine, "The ways in which sound affects the human organism are myriad and subtle. The loud sounds and bright lights of today are tremendous indoctrination tools." Who is saying it? Is it said by a Muslim? If we tell these things to an atheist or someone, like they could say, "Oh, you're being prejudiced, you're being biased." Who says this? Like, whose statement is this? Is it Maulana Zappa? Is it Sheikh Vincent Zappa? No, the guy is a guitarist, like who is living a hedonistic and materialistic life, right? And the guy is saying that it's a tremendous indoctrination tool. Like, what more evidence do you want? What more evidence do you want? Right? The ways in which sound affects the human organism are myriad and subtle. The loud sounds and bright lights of today are tremendous indoctrination tools. Now, if you want, like if you like to have further research, you can research more about Loon. You can research more about, a lot of the music stars who came into Islam, and that they give you really disturbing information about the reality of the field, because these people, they have lived it. They have lived it. Literally lived it. Music and singing ignite the central desires of a person, which ultimately end up with bad consequences. And most songs speak of premarital relationship as a norm. So normalization is the first step before desensitization, and through desensitization, it leads to demoralization. So this is the basic process. So they try to normalize this stuff as much as possible, and then people will think that like this is a common thing, and they get desensitized to the extent that their framework of morality, their framework of normativity is broken down, that they will tend to engage in it. And the funny thing is this: as long as you are in this box, as long as you are in this matrix, as long as you are desensitized, you're never going to understand that this is a problem. You're never going to understand that this is a problem. Anyone else from the outside who tells you that this is a problem, you're going to call them an extremist. You're going to call them as a fundamentalist. You're going to call them as a fanatic. Like, this is the problem. When you are inside the box, you're not going to be able to see it. You got to come outside the box. You got to stop listening to this stuff for at least a month, and then you will realize, you'll look back into your life, you'll introspect, and you will understand the reality of the situation here. You'll understand the reality of the situation here. If we go through the history of Western finance and look at the paintings of any period of art, we'll see musical instruments, women and alcohol depicted together, because music, fornication, and drugs are related to each other. And there's also, a very shocking thing, because it's proved in a hadith as well. The hadith clearly says, all these things together. It basically, says that all these things are intertwined. All the things are intertwined. In a study published in a Journal of Broadcasting and Electronic Media in 1985, Baxter and Associates analyzed the content of the music and videos and concluded that 60% of them portray sexual feelings and impulses, and substantial minority of those music videos display provocative clothing and sexually suggestive body movements. Like 60%. Like, this is when? This is 1985. Like, I wasn't even born. This is 1985. How long has it been? Do you think it has increased or decreased? Increased or decreased? What do you think? Do you think everyone has suddenly become moral? No, it has become demoralized to a degree that the 60% would have become 99%. The 60% have become 99%. Another study, research Duran and colleagues analyzed 518 music videos from MTV, CMT, and VH1 for portrayals of alcohol and tobacco use. They found that portrayals of drug use differed among various networks and music type, with MTV having the highest percent of videos that portrayed alcohol and tobacco use. One of the striking findings from the study was that alcohol use was found in higher proportion in music videos that had any sexual content as compared to those that did not have any sexual content in them. Very clear. In a recent study, the content of 6 different types of media was analyzed in terms of their exposure and its outcome of the young people. These medias included movies, television shows, newspapers, magazines, and music popular. So this is not just like one platform. It's not just one type of media. They are analyzing 6 types of medias. Researchers, Pardon and Associates, found in the study that sexual content is much more prevalent in popular music lyrics than in any other medium. In any other medium. And what are these music videos talking about? All the filth that you can think about. And then we have a teenager who is listening to this filth for 2 hours and 3 hours straight, continuously, like every day. How do you expect it not to have, a consequence? Let me ask the parents here who allow their children to be exposed to this stuff. I mean, you allow yourself or allow your children to be indoctrinated right in front of your eyes, and then it's a very sad reality. And then these parents, like, they come for counseling and they say that my child is doing this, my child is doing that, my child is not listening to this, my child is getting desensitized, like my child is doing this and that, and the parent is crying. And if you talk to the child has been doing this for the past 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. How do you expect this not to have an effect on your child? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It's time we stand up by being aware. We need to get to this realization that this is problematic. This is problematic. Now, inshallah, with this, we will end today, inshallah, and we will conclude. We will complete in the next session. But I don't think we'll be able to complete in the next session as well, because there are about more than 200 slides filled with a lot of scientific researches. But it is not going to be possible to complete the entire thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick and choose on certain aspects of it, certain important points that needs to be discussed. And I really think that it's time we stand up against this. Like, if we don't stand up against this, like, we ourselves are going to be the victims of our ignorance. Victims of our ignorance. The awareness that you have got here, you got to talk to your brothers, you got to talk to your sisters, you got to talk to your friends, you got to talk to your own parents, your father and mother, and tell them that this is problematic, inshallah. So the first step to actually solving a problem is diagnosing it. The first step to solving a problem is validating and addressing it. That is what we have done here. And inshallah, the more we move ahead, the more insights we will get. And let me tell you, that void you will feel when you keep out music from your life, when you kick out music from your life, and when you connect with the Holy Quran, that void is going to be filled, right? It is going to be filled. How many of you have experienced this? You stop music, you felt that void, but then when you connected with the Holy Quran, it felt amazing. And then listening to music seemed annoying. How much of you experienced this? This is the reality. This is the reality. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from this filth. With regards to the jurisprudential aspect of it, with regards to what is, allowed and what is not allowed, the nuanced aspect of it, you can talk to the scholars. They'll give you more information on this, inshallah. Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from this filth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all, protect our children from this filth as well. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. And finally, before ending, I have a book recommendation. I have posted a synopsis. I won't say it's a review. Yes, a review of the book on my Instagram as well. You can check it out and research more about that particular book. It's a beautiful book. It's titled "Music Made Me Do It." It's going to be a beautiful read, inshallah. So with that, we are going to end today. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Am I audible?